Welcome to this first video as part of our short tour through Mark's Gospel. Gospel comes from an Old English word that means good news, and the Gospels tell us the good news of Jesus Christ. There are 4 Gospels in the New Testament, and other Gospels were circulating in the life of the early Christians too. A Gospel is not a biography. In many ways it's much more, because it talks about the faith both of the writer and also issues that the earliest Christians were facing in their faith. So who was Mark? Well, one story is that Mark may well have been the young boy who was caught up on the fringes of the disturbance when Jesus was arrested in Gethsemane. Mark goes into great detail to tell us of a young man running away naked after his clothes had been torn off him. That may well be Mark. Why else recount that detail? Mark appears to be the person referred to as John Mark by Luke when he's writing his Acts of the Apostles. Mark's Gospel is believed to be the oldest of the Gospels, but even then it was written about 30 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, so we're talking about AD 65. Other documents were written before that, and those include some of Paul's letter. Mark's Gospel was written in Greek, a form of Greek known as Koine Greek or Common Greek. That means Mark would have been writing in a language that to some extent was a foreign language for him, because his main language would be Aramaic, the language that Jesus spoke. And Mark's Greek, when he writes his Gospel, is a little bit clumsy in places. We believe that Mark was probably writing his Gospel in Rome during very troubled times. In AD 64, much of Rome was destroyed in a fire, and the Emperor Nero looked for someone to hold responsible, and he chose a new religious group called Christians, or followers of the way, as they were called at the time. That meant that Mark was writing at a time of persecution, and Jesus' suffering features large in his Gospel. In fact, Mark's Gospel is really a passion account, the account of the road to the cross. Mark would have written his Gospel by gathering together different traditions about Jesus that were circulating within the early Christian community. Those traditions would have been related faithfully down the generations, and although Mark is writing quite a while after the resurrection, 30 years is not particularly long in terms of verbal tradition. Mark wrote his Gospel as a way of supporting that early Christian community in Rome. And in his Gospel, he develops a theme that some call the Messianic secret, the secret of who Jesus actually is. At the beginning of Mark's Gospel, when Jesus is baptized, only Jesus hears those words from God saying, "You are my servant." As the Gospel develops, other people are let into the secret, as it were, as they realize who Jesus is as Son of God. Until finally, on the cross as Jesus dies, it's a Roman centurion, a complete outsider, who says, "Truly this man was the Son of God." Well, on the sheet that accompanies this first session, there's an outline of Mark's Gospel for you to explore. It's a very short Gospel. In my Bible, it's only about 20 pages long, so it's easy to sit down and read it in one session. But over the next few sessions, we'll be going through different aspects of Mark's Gospel. Enjoy it, take it at your own pace. The links will remain on the website, not only this week, but beyond that as well.